Hello dudes and babes, DT here. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're here for the first time. Today we're sitting down and taking a closer look at a giant versus royal giant. So as you know, a few days ago I've opened the chest and I got myself a royal giant. So today I want to take a look and say which one do I prefer more and for what reason. So right now we're going to compare the stats. Both of my royal giants and regular giant are level 6 right now, and therefore I feel like the field is about leveled up and we should be able to properly compare them and say, okay, I prefer this one versus that one. Now, of course, the royal giant is more expensive and costs you one more elixir. It also has fewer hit points per second and can take less damage per second. Therefore, it makes regular giant a bit more attractive. However, the difference here is, of course, the range. Royal giant is able to attack your opponent without even crossing the bridge if you are facing somebody who is placing a defensive building. So, for instance, if somebody's placing an Inferno tower, a Tesla tower, cannon, a mortar, or even a bomb tower, the royal giant is able to start shooting that up and taking it down even without properly crossing the bridge or crossing the bridge all the way. Of course, it all depends on the placement, but that is one of the advantages, of course. Now with the regular giant being a little bit more affordable, so to say, it costs 5 elixirs, and therefore in the beginning of the gameplay you're able to you're able to actually use the cart without having to have an elixir pump. And personally, I am not a huge fan of having an elixir pump in my deck. I do feel that it slows me down a little bit, and I don't personally also like to, rage the elixir pump. So that is just my own 2 cents. So I'm already a little bit more predisposed towards a regular giant. It can take more damage per second and it causes more damage per second. However, if you're going against somebody with an Inferno tower, a Tesla tower, or bomb thrower, those cards are going to be somewhat lethal to your regular giant, because he's going to go for them, he's going to get up close and personal, and therefore is going to probably take up a ton of damage and most likely get taken down. Now, in the replay that you just saw, I did an okay job using my regular giant, and I actually got me a victory. Now, I also have a royal giant, which I have been using in friendly battles and in tournaments, and let's just say I am still not a huge fan and I'm not convinced, even though I lost a ton to royal giant in the past, and I thought, well, as soon as I get one, I'll be able to just crack a locking and get awesome attacks in with the royal giant. But let's take a look at this replay here where I actually lost to my opponent who had royal giant. So let's go ahead and jump right in, take a look at what happened, and take a look as to why I think royal giant is still a great card, but personally it is just not the right one for me. So the deck right here is the same deck that I've used basically in the previous attack. So like I said, I'm trying to be as impartial as possible and have as equal of circumstances as possible to make sure that I am making a very impartial judgment here on the royal giant versus the regular giant. So I start off with dropping my giant on the left hand side of the arena, and my giant is heading their way. Now my opponent drops the elixir collector first because, as I've mentioned, of course royal giant is a bit more taxing in terms of elixir, and therefore requires, perhaps most of the times requires, the elixir collector. Now, as I've mentioned before, I am not a huge fan of elixir collector. I think it definitely is a great card when you have an amazing strategy in hand, but personally, raging the elixir collector, so using 2 extra cards in the deck that I am not a huge fan of, are just not how I want to play out or play this game out. So here it is, the royal giant gets to the arena of my side of the arena, and look at that. Even though the royal giant is still being hit up by by the princess at the archer tower on the arena side, he is still causing a really good amount of damage there. Now, at one point, we actually get to a pretty level field, like pretty even level field. Look at this right now. There are 653 hit points on his side and 690 on my side. Now, I think the final blow here was, of course, the prince. Look at him. He absolutely annihilates my my tower with just 1 pin at it, and of course he takes down my musketeer in no time. So I think the prince is really what has dug me in, and in combination with the giant that has a really long range. I believe the range of a giant is 6.5 squares, so that is quite a range. I also did not have arrows here, so maybe that's the reason why I did not win, but I'm just showing this to you. I'm showing you a loss because the combination here is really, really solid. And also look at that. Right now, the Royal Giant is on the left hand side, where the right hand side tower is not really reaching him, and so therefore he's just sort of in a sneaky, perfectly safe spot where he brings down my my crown tower and gets the Royal Giant 3 crown victory. So even though, you know, like I said, the Royal Giant is a very solid card, you know, I personally am just not a huge fan because it is more expensive, because it requires perhaps most of the time to have the elixir pump with it, and that's just not how I personally like to play. Now, I may change my mind. I may give it a try a few more times, play with my deck, and come back and say Royal Giant is the best. But for right now, I feel like I still prefer the regular Giant to the Royal Giant, and that's just my opinion. So I hope you enjoyed this really quick episode of me blabbering and talking about whether I prefer the Royal Giant or the regular Giant, and the answer, of course, is the regular. So I will catch you in the next episode, and until then, DT is out.